Back to Alabama Care. Today I have Sara Franklin with the Epilepsy Foundation of Alabama, and we're going to talk about all things epilepsy. Sara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Hannah and Alabama Care for having me this morning. It's a great day to start the week, and it's officially November 1st, which starts National Epilepsy Awareness Month. So it's the perfect day for a Facebook Live. But I'm Sara Franklin and work for the Epilepsy Foundation, and I am just thrilled to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So if you catch me looking down, I'm going to be watching the comments to see if anybody has questions or anything.
Okay, great.
So do you want to tell us about what led you to the Epilepsy Foundation?
Yes. So at age 30, I had my first seizure. A lot of people call it grand mal seizures. The technical word is tonic-clonic, but had a seizure in the middle of the night, and I was a new mom at the time. So I remember I was taken to the ER, and the nurse that discharged me said, 1 in 10 people will have a seizure at some point in their life. We hope this is just your one. You can't drive for 6 months according to state law, but make sure you're getting enough sleep and that you're not stressed as much as possible. And hopefully we can this a little hiccup that we can get past. But additional seizures continued. And so I was started on seizure medication and diagnosed with epilepsy. And just due to the driving, it kept getting pushed back when I could drive. So I stepped away from my current job in 2018 and just was working to get my seizures under control. And a few months later, I was encouraged to apply for a job with Epilepsy Foundation, and thankful to be here.
Oh, that's so good. What did you do? What did you do before that? What kind of work?
Yeah, my major at Alabama was public relations and communication studies. So I had a few jobs out of school, primarily working in corporate communications writing and PR agency world.
So you were perfect for this.
Well, you're sweet. I loved meeting families like yours and just connecting with people. And I had no idea how common seizures were. I knew a little bit about seizures from seeing maybe some of my special needs friends in elementary school having seizures, but I had no idea how common they were, and just how many people are truly affected by epilepsy and seizures.
Right, I know, and neither until my family was affected with epilepsy, I didn't really know either. I had seen like a few seizures on TV and stuff like that, but I had no idea.
Right.
So I know you're good at this. Tell us about the epilepsy statistics.
Yes. So just like I learned the night that I went to the ER in 2018, 1 in 10 people will have a seizure at some point in their lives. And 1 in 26 will develop epilepsy, which is recurring seizures that are unprovoked. And so if you think about even just a classroom of students, that's about 24 to 28 students per class typically. So 1 out of every classroom. That doesn't mean that they have active seizures and active epilepsy at the time, but that they will be diagnosed during their life is the average statistics. And it's most common in children and senior adults, but it can strike at any point in life. And they can be very some children, I didn't know this before I started this job, but can have hundreds of seizures per day. And then some people might have a few seizures a year, or some people might be well controlled on medicine or after having surgery. But there's 3.4 million people living in the United States with epilepsy and more than 54,000 in Alabama.
Oh my gosh. I know that's crazy. My daughter, Charlie, she started having seizures when she was 3 months old. And my husband, Tim, was diagnosed with epilepsy in his 30s. So that's, it proves that it can come anytime. And then also like you said, how common it is. It's true. Like a lot of the things, and I don't know that I had ever even heard of really epilepsy talked about. Like you hear seizure thrown around here and there, but epilepsy, it is extremely common.
Same.
And then also something that is crazy, like a third of people who have epilepsy like have uncontrolled seizures.
Right.
So like Tim, his is well controlled on medication and Charlie's is not. And besides medication, like there's so many other treatments, and some people have luck, some people don't. Charlie has tried and failed multiple treatments.
Well, and I think what's interesting too about that, since the 1970s, there have been dozens and dozens and dozens of new medications coming out to treat seizures and epilepsy, and they do work for numbers of cases, but at the same time, it's still that 1 out of every 3 people with epilepsy don't have seizure control. And some are that they're just catastrophic cases of epilepsy, and it's hard to control the brain because it's so complex. And, as a human race, we're still learning so much more about the brain in the scientific world. But and then some people might not have seizure control because they don't like the way the medicine makes them feel, or some people might have seizure control because there might be a brain surgery as an option, but brain surgery sounds so scary. So we're working to educate people on how to do seizure first aid, but then also don't give up looking for seizure control or to lessen the number of seizures.
Right, right. Something that I learned, so when Charlie first started having seizures, I remember thinking, okay, well, I just want to know that it is seizures because people live with seizures all the time and she'll be fine. And something I did not know at the time was that you can die from a seizure. And, it's probably good that I didn't know that at the time, but I never knew that.
And I didn't know that either until I really started this job. I certainly had never heard of SUDEP until I started the job and working for Epilepsy Foundation of America, but SUDEP stands for Sudden Unexpected Death in Epilepsy. And unfortunately, even since I've started this job in the past 2 years, I've learned and met several families and talked to families that have lost their loved ones to seizures. Often SUDEP happens when someone's sleeping. And so we raise money for SUDEP research. Is a big focus of the Epilepsy Foundation of America and Epilepsy Foundation of Alabama. And it's very tragic. And I didn't know that either, that a seizure alone could end a life, but it can.
I know. And another thing, when people think of seizures, they think of like the tonic-clonic seizures where people are jerking and it's just obvious. And there are so many types of seizures. Like the first one, like when Charlie started having seizures, she was just like, would look to the side. Mm-hmm. And we knew something was off. And those were focal partial seizures. And then it was like a year or so later that she started having the, more obvious ones that people would know. So what has personally impacted you the most from your job?
I would say there are so many things that come to mind. I mean, one of my favorite memories, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but a few weeks after I started the job in 2019 was our statewide walk to end epilepsy. And I was so new to the diagnosis myself, a year or so in, but seeing nearly 1,000 people at Railroad Park in Birmingham, all rallying around their friends, seeing some of my friends surprise me, meeting new people that I had talked to on the phone, and just seeing people of all ages, of all races, of all ethnicities, of all demographics are affected by seizures and epilepsy, and that people aren't alone. So that would be one of my most favorite memories. But I think too, getting to know volunteers like yourself and your husband, Tim, and walking alongside families, walking through really, really tough journeys with epilepsy, advocating for in Montgomery and then in DC for people with epilepsy. There's so many things that it's hard to nail down just one thing, but I think getting to know others and really raising awareness for how common seizures are. And we are not proud how common it is, but we do want to educate and continue everything we can for research and advocacy on behalf of people with epilepsy.
Right. And we have a question in the chat from Alex. It says, how can someone help if they see someone having a seizure? So Alex, stay tuned because we've got a lot of good info coming up. So the Seizure Safe School Act and the license plate, I know that's both something that you have pushed. And so talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the Seizure Safe Schools Act has a little bit to do with Alex's question, but this bill has passed now in 12 states, including Alabama this past summer. Governor Kay Ivey signed the bill. And so we are so excited about the way that we were able to work with the State Department of Education and the State Board of Nursing and the Children's of Alabama Epilepsy Program, epileptologist and neurologist, and Epilepsy Foundation of America and Alabama really will improve care of those with seizures in Alabama's public schools. And it will also improve access to rescue medication to hopefully lessen the chance of someone passing away from a seizure at school. So be happy to talk to anyone about the bill further if they'd like to contact me, but the bill's now passed and the guidelines are being written now, and then the laws will be implemented in fall of 2022. So that's that one. And then Alabama is the first state in the nation to have an epilepsy specific license plate. So lots of states have tried, but Alabama is the first, and it's now in print. So I've got one on my car right now because thankfully I am driving now that I'm seizure free. But we need to maintain 1,000 people being the tag in order for the tag to continue printing each year. So we encourage you to go to your local DMV, or when you're selecting your license plate online, to select the epilepsy license plate, because funds raised from that tag, from that specialty tag, they go straight into research into the UAB and Children's of Alabama Epilepsy Program, with proceeds also going to Epilepsy Foundation Alabama.
So we were one of the ones that signed up to get one. So will they have them like where you get tags? So they just have them there?
They just have them there. So you could, if you wanted to, if you signed up for the first 1,000, an anonymous donor covered the cost of those tags. And so you have a voucher in your email to go get that tag for free. So you could go ahead and get it today, and it would be proudly on your tag. But then next year, whenever your month is that you typically renew, you would need to pay for the tag that year. So some people are going ahead and getting their tag now, and some people are waiting to use their free voucher the next time they renew so that they get it for a year for free. But even if you didn't pre-register, you can go ahead and get the tag now or get it the next month that you're due.
Okay, and then we have another comment. Alex says, I have a family member and she was on a number of different medications to help stop seizures, but was still having them until she got her last medication a few years ago, and she hasn't had any since. That's so good. That's so
That
good
is
deal.
incredible.
And sometimes, like, it's the strangest things. It can be like a combination of medicines.
Yeah. But either lessen the number. Yeah.
And that's why, like, it's so important, like, because you just don't understand it. So it's so important that we do have more research and can understand better, like, what to do, what helps.
And a lot of it is trial and error on the medications to see which ones work. So don't ever give up asking your doctor, like, is there anything new on the market that I could try? Is there any tests that could be run since it's been maybe a few years that we could see if the seizures are still in the same place, or diagnose the specific type of seizure to match the medication that works well for that best type? Because there are so many different types of seizures and so many different types of seizure medicines, as well as implantable devices and brain surgeries. So we just want to, yes, and diet therapies. And so we want to make sure that you are exhausting all options and don't give up, and don't just settle for dangerous seizures that, or at least aim, my doctor personally, she always says, we want you to be on the lowest amount of medicine possible that controls the seizures and allows you to live just the most normal life that you can. And that's going to vary based on person.
Right. So. We have a neighbor, and when she was like in the 6th grade, I think she was getting in trouble at school, and I think maybe her grades were even dropping, and she was supposedly just like staring off into space. And come to find out, she was having seizures. So she was diagnosed with epilepsy. And so she just graduated last year. And I think the year before that, she weaned off of her medicine and she's been fine. So that's awesome. I love to hear that.
Mm-hmm. And that is very common sometimes, a lot of times, with just absent seizures for teenagers or children. What I'm told by neurologists and epileptologists is that oftentimes children grow out of those types of seizures, and you can wean off the most. I know that's even the case with Children's of Alabama's newest epileptologist, Dr. Catherine Layler. She was diagnosed in her childhood with epilepsy. A teacher first noticed her seizures, and she was able to get on medicine and then wean off of it eventually. But now it's become her passion, and now she's a neurologist in Birmingham. So it's really neat to watch that journey too.
Right. And that reminded me, one of my best friends, her daughter, I remember telling her about Charlie having seizures, and she was like, oh yeah, my daughter had some seizures like when she was a baby. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's crazy how common it is, like you said. And so she just had she had a handful, and she grew out of them. So So that's good. Okay, so Alex, I hope you're paying attention still. The seizure first aid certification and seizure first aid basic. What is the difference between those, and how can people get those?
Yeah, so for decades, Epilepsy Foundation staff across America has been teaching people seizure first aid, whether that's school staff or civic clubs or Girl Scout troops. We've been teaching the 3 simple steps of stay safe side. But now, during COVID, we launched an epilepsy learning portal. And so it can be found at learn.epilepsy.com. And no matter where you are, you can register and take a virtual online course to learn seizure first aid. And so seizure first aid basics, that is on demand. It's about a 30-minute course that you can watch on that site. Again, it's learn.epilepsy.com. And I can put this in the chat box following the Facebook Live, but that is the site where you can learn and you can sign up to learn seizure first aid and to encourage your family members and friends, especially people that are new to the diagnosis, maybe babysitters. That's really great. But then if everyone knows what CPR certification is, and CPR is not the same as what you do for someone when they're having a seizure. But everyone is familiar with the fact that you can become certified in CPR. Well, we can now, as of 2020, you can become certified in seizure first aid. And what it involves is taking an online pre-test that takes about 5 minutes, watching a live course on Zoom about seizure first aid. It teaches you the different types of seizures, what to do when someone has a seizure, and when to call for emergency help. And if you don't have seizure control, what other options to look into and what to ask your doctors. And then you take a post test that's about 5 minutes long. And if you pass, which we know you will upon watching the course, then you're emailed a certificate and you're certified in seizure first aid for 2 years. And so we are so excited that that is now online. I'm actually teaching the course. If you want to sign up, I'm helping moderate a course tomorrow afternoon on Tuesday, November 2nd. So you could go to that website, sign up. There are several courses during National Epilepsy Awareness Month that you could take, but just sign up for one that works for you. And you'll also notice on that same website, learn.epilepsy.com, we're continuously adding different courses to that. So the most prominent one we want everyone to pay attention to is the seizure recognition and first aid certification. And then if you want to take the shorter one, again, it's the seizure first aid basics. But there are courses about employment in epilepsy. There are courses about your rights as an employee with epilepsy. There are courses for school nurses about seizure rescue medicine administration. There are tons of courses even about PNES, which is something I didn't know about until I started with the Epilepsy Foundation as well. But we could do a whole course on even just that epilepsy learning portal is what we call it. But I definitely encourage people watching to tune in and to check out the website and do everything they can to learn about seizures since they are so common.
Yes, the website is full of all kind of information. So how long does the certification take?
It's about an hour and 15 minutes on Zoom. So if you add the 5 minutes to take the pre-test and the 5 minutes to take the post-test, as well as creating your account, you're looking at about an hour and a half total. And one thing to really point out is that these courses, people are registering for them from across America. So make sure to pay attention to the time zone to make sure that you're tuning in to the live course at the right time.
Right. So does it also teach them how to recognize all the different types of seizures?
Since there are so many different types, it goes through the most common types. So it goes through tonic-clonic, focal impaired awareness, focal aware seizures, absence seizures, and it talks about just the ways to recognize signs and symptoms of seizure activity. And it goes over the importance of, if you aren't sure if it's a seizure, try to grab your phone and take a video of it to show a doctor, and to make sure the importance of timing the seizure. If a seizure lasts longer than 5 minutes, it's definitely time to call for emergency help. Or if the person is pregnant, if the seizure happened in water. Can you hear me, Han?
We'll wait just a few seconds to allow Hannah to come back in. Looks like a little connection there.
Okay.
And so thank you for sharing your story, Mrs. Franklin. And I'm putting a few of those links in the chat here. So I put the learn.epilepsy in the chat, and then also linked out to the epilepsyalabama.org website for the license plates. So Yeah, if you guys are interested in supporting and creating awareness around that, please go on those websites and get your license plate and show the world that research is being done. And it looks like Hannah has exited the meeting, and so she'll just rejoin and click the link, and it will refresh here.
Perfect.
So there she is. She's coming back
Coming
in.
in. All good.
Okay,
Hannah, you're here.
we're gonna ask
Technology fun.
we're gonna ask to unmute. And Hannah, you're still muted.
Okay.
You're back.
Oh
Technology is its own, it's got a mind of its own sometimes.
my gosh, I'm so sorry.
You're good. We're still rolling. Alex was putting a lot of the links in the chat box, so we can
Perfect.
pick up right there.
So I think the biggest thing with the basic thing, like for people who want to know about what to do, is like you mentioned first, the stay safe side. And
Yeah.
I had never heard of that either, but that means like stay with the person, make sure they're safe, as in like maybe put a pillow under their head, or make sure there's nothing sharp that they're gonna like hit themselves on, and to put them on their side.
Yeah, we like to call it the 3 S's. So really easy to remember, we hope. Stay with the person, like you said. And then besides really those 3 S's is the importance of timing the seizure, to really, and documenting that to make sure you know how long the seizure lasts. Most seizures end on their own in less than 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes, even though it might feel like it's lasting 20 minutes, because it is something hard to watch, especially the convulsing seizures. But really keeping a log of when seizures happen, what types they may be, and asking someone, like, if you have epilepsy yourself, hey, I know this might feel weird, but if I start having a seizure, would you just press record on your phone so that I can show my doctor what's happening? Because even when people go in for testing to try and figure out what types of seizures am I having, it's oftentimes hard to create a seizure in the hospital for the doctor to capture with all the wires on your head. And so a video of a seizure can be very helpful for a doctor to diagnose exactly what type of seizure it looks like. And again, like we talked about earlier, what medicine may work best for that type of seizure.
Right. I know. And that's kind of weird at first. Like, say if your child's having seizures and they tell you to record it, like you feel kind of weird recording it, but and like you said about the time just slows down if somebody's having a seizure. Like it feels like it lasts forever, but it's usually just like a minute. And what you mentioned about logging, keeping a seizure log. So I noticed on the website that is there a seizure log like online that you can use, or one that you download and print, or what is that?
So a lot of times doctors will send you home with a diary suggestion sheet. I know Epilepsy Foundation of America, we have a My Seizure Diary app, and it was actually just updated. So make sure that your apps are updated if you have that on your phone. I have it downloaded, but thankfully in my personal life, I'm not having to document seizures, so I'm not going into the app often, but I do know moms that do. But even some moms might even just keep a note in their phone, so that they know they always have it on them. Or some people like to physically write down the seizure activity on a piece of paper. So it's really just your preference, a calendar or anything. But if you look on epilepsy.com for seizure logs, seizure tracking, there are plenty of templates that you can use, or a physical app on your phone.
And what is the PNES that you mentioned?
Yeah, I didn't know a lot about that until I started the job. But it is called psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. So there are some people that have seizure activity, but it's non-epileptic. So if you capture it on an EEG, it's not actual epileptic and electrical activity happening in the brain, but it's more of a psychogenic. So cognitive behavioral therapy is often used in that, more of the mental health counselors and that kind of thing. So that's something that it's not very common, but it is very traumatic, especially for maybe people that are going through that. And so we do have resources for that on epilepsy.com as well. And there is a course on learn.epilepsy.com where you can learn more about that too. It's under the school training, but it is, anyone can take it.
I'm going to look into that too. So they don't actually have seizures. Is that what you said?
So it is, and I'm not a medical professional, so and certainly not on PNES, because I again just heard about this, when I started the job about 2 years ago. But it is more of it's non-epileptic seizure activity, so it's not epilepsy. But it is, psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. So that could be a whole nother, we'd need somebody else to come be the pro on that for Alabama Care, but do know that we do have resources on that.
Yeah, I had never heard of that either. So let's talk about my favorite, Kids Crew.
Yes. Epilepsy Foundation Kids Crew. I know Charlie has been a world changer, your daughter, but it is a free program offered by the Epilepsy Foundation of America. And proud to have you, Hannah, on our Kids Crew Leadership Council. But it is just a way, a family in Florida launched the Kids Crew, and it was started with just a few neighbors on the street. And now we're close to, I think, around 5,000 members across America. But it's a way for families and children with epilepsy, and really siblings and friends of those with epilepsy. You don't even have to have epilepsy to join, but to participate in projects that raise epilepsy awareness.
I think that means so much to me. I think that family is the best. But I always say things about Charlie, she can't walk and she's nonverbal, things like that, but she can still do big things. And I think about Livy, like, look what she inspired. She inspired the Kids Crew and Lemonade for Livy, and that's like all over the US.
Yes. Purple Pumpkin Project, which those are everywhere. And even earning walks pins. And, Charlie, Charlie, Livy, any of them, they can make a change, whether it's advocacy, helping, your mom email a legislator. Like, there's so many ways to make a difference. And the Kids Crew just formalized how to get involved that way for kids.
Yeah. And I feel like their main focus is basically like spreading awareness and educating others. And then, like, as kids, I feel like that's so important. And, because if more people knew about it, it would maybe make it a little less scary if somebody saw somebody having a seizure. And then also, maybe they even learned a little bit about what they could do and how they could help. So I shared this with John with the Kids Crew, and I don't think I've told you, so I'm excited to tell you this now. So Charlie's spreading awareness, I think it was her spreading awareness pin from 2020. So how she sent out the packets to some teachers with the book and a few different things. Do you remember?
I do. Yes.
So her spreading awareness. So she sent out this book.
Yes.
It's called Sometimes I Get the Wiggles. And it's a really good book, talking about seizures and what to do in a classroom. And I think another mom, I think she's from Oklahoma, she's on the board there with the Epilepsy Foundation. She wrote this. Awesome. But I love this book. But anyway, so a teacher sent me a picture of her class with that book, and they had colored like purple ribbons and sent me a picture. I was like, oh my gosh, Charlie's spreading awareness pin is still working like a year later.
That's incredible. You need to send me the picture.
Okay, I will. That just made my day. I thought, oh my gosh, I love that. And that's what I love so much about books is, they don't go anywhere, even, so.
Absolutely.
I love that. Another question is the advocacy program. That's something like I've been curious about. I don't know much about that. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, at Epilepsy Foundation of America, which is our parent organization headquarters, there's a team of about 4 to 5 people that their sole focus is advocacy and epilepsy. And so they pay close attention to bills in DC on Capitol Hill surrounding healthcare and specifically epilepsy too, as well as state legislation. So they wrote the Seizure Safe Schools Act and help us really get amped up for legislation on the local level. And they are here, whether it's advocating for access to a new medicine on the market. A lot of times that involves writing a letter to maybe local insurance, state insurance offices and that kind of thing. So advocacy is a huge piece, kind of in the, it's not something that your everyday person with epilepsy maybe sees. I didn't know a lot about it until I started with the job, but I talked to our advocacy team on at least 3 to 4 times a week about issues, whether that's coming from doctors or patients or working on legislation in Montgomery or in DC. And so I can't say enough about our advocacy team and how they arm us locally on the state level with information. And that's been huge for just us, especially like we've talked about with the Seizure Safe Schools bill passing.
Mhm. So to backtrack a little bit, the kids crew is for like babies or whoever up until 14.
Mhm.
So when kids age out of that, I was thinking, see, I didn't know about the advocacy program. I wasn't sure what it was. So
Yeah.
that's nothing like really for a 14-year-old, right?
Well, so 14 at age 14, you technically age out of the kids crew just because some of the, when people are becoming teenagers, they may feel like they're too old to be part of the kids crew, but we do have a teen speak up program.
Oh,
So
yeah.
teenagers from across America and across the states, especially pre-COVID, children and teenagers can be nominated from across the state, and a teenager is chosen each year to represent their state on Capitol Hill and meet with federal legislators and their staff to be trained on how to share their story of their journey with epilepsy and to make asks directly to their state senators and to their federal senators and federal legislators on behalf of people with epilepsy. So one thing that, this is a little bit more in the weeds too, but we work on step therapy reform. And that's a little bit to talk about it shortly, is to say, if your doctor thinks that a certain medicine would work well for your type of seizure, we want you to be able to take that medicine. But sometimes, whether it's just protocol or insurance, they'll want you to fail on certain medications first before you can try that medicine. And we want people to be able to try the medicine that the doctor thinks that will work best, because every seizure can damage the brain and seizures can be life-threatening. So we don't think it's worth having to fail on medications first. So step therapy is one thing that we're always working on. That's more of a big federal issue, as well as we always do. This is a big thing for the Teen Speak Up program too, is we train the teenagers to encourage their senators and representatives to approve CDC funding for the epilepsy program. So everyone's very familiar now these days with the CDC and the work that they do, but they fund different public health programs. And so we want epilepsy, because of its prominence and how common it truly is, we need more research dollars going into epilepsy. Epilepsy, it often is kind of goes along with other disorders or diseases or cancers. And so we certainly know how important research is so important across the board, but we think epilepsy deserves, its own research. And so we do, CDC does pour about 10.5 million into epilepsy research each year, but we think that we advocate for even more, just because we know how devastating seizures can be. And we know that there are things that can work to decrease seizures, or even research on wearables to stop seizure once it starts, or alert people that a seizure is happening. So that's a lot of what teenagers can get involved in, is our Teen Speak Up program. And then even after you age out of Teen Speak Up, a new program launched last year called the Epilepsy Advocacy Champions. So that would be something, if you're really interested in advocacy, I can connect you with our contact person that organizes the Epilepsy Advocate Champions, and they meet quarterly, monthly, based on just the time of year and when the sessions are happening. But they really become trained on the weeds of the bills. Not everyone is interested in that kind of stuff, but when people are, they really truly are. So that's a great way to get involved too with advocacy.
So I wasn't even very familiar with the Teen Speak Up either. So I'm learning all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
The Epilepsy Foundation, it really has a place for every age and for everybody. And the great thing about all this is you don't have to have epilepsy to do any of this.
Yeah, you can be a parent of someone with epilepsy, a sibling, or you can have epilepsy yourself. So we need people with epilepsy advocating, but we also need those that have loved ones with epilepsy advocating on behalf of the millions of people with seizures in the US.
Yeah, and it could just be somebody who's passionate about helping.
Yes, a doctor, a nurse, anyone that sees how it truly can impact people.
Mm-hmm. So what about the support groups that they all offer?
Yeah, and so that kind of, you were reminding me about even Teen Speak Up last year for 2020, it was virtual. So we had usually all the teens fly into Washington, D.C. each spring, but last year all the meetings were virtual. And so due to that, support groups have primarily been virtual as well during 2020. So whether that's kids crew meetings or monthly support group meetings, a lot of the states have combined and to really just unite people from across America to have support groups. Because what we found is that we get calls often of people looking for support groups, and we encourage people to gather with people they know in their area, to, meet up for coffee or meet up and listen to a speaker. But it's hard to be everywhere to all people across America when Epilepsy Foundation of America has staff scattered throughout the nation, but not in every single city. We wish we did, but we're just not quite there yet. And so we do have, for anyone that wants to log on virtually, we have whether it's parent and caregiver support groups or teen support groups or just general public support groups. So those are all virtual. We encourage you to watch our website and our social media pages for those. And what we've seen too is oftentimes the people that can't drive with epilepsy, it was hard for them to get across town to an in-person support group meeting, but they can certainly log on Zoom or use their phone, or if they have internet access, they can log on and meet others walking through the similar journey. So we want to, I think going in the future, it'll move more to a hybrid, people miss being in person, but so we want to see each other and be in person, but then also offer virtual support for them.
Right. Yeah. I guess it was like back in the summer when me and Charlie and Parker came to one and got free ice cream.
Yes.
I really don't remember what that was, but it was some kind of meetup.
It was definitely, that was more, it was a support group meeting. So we invited our support group members and our kids crew parents and kiddos. And that was really a support group night to celebrate the fact that Seizure Safe Schools bill had passed. So we had a sponsor purchase ice cream that night for everyone that attended. And that was really nice to see people in person outside safely who we hadn't seen in person in a while.
Right. That was fun. And I got to meet a lot of people that I had been wanting to meet, and then some new faces too. So that's always, I think that's the biggest thing with any diagnosis is, finding people on similar journeys. Like that's huge. So as we come to a close, I wanted to ask you, how else can people raise awareness during National Epilepsy Month?
Yeah, so no matter where you are, if you're in Alabama, if you're in another state, I would encourage you, especially as we kick off National Epilepsy Awareness Month today, to visit just epilepsy.com. There's a header on the main webpage that talks about Epilepsy Month and ways you can get involved. So there are social media graphics you can share. There you can become Seizure First Aid certified. You can make your own image with your own picture, sharing your journey with epilepsy. And then if you're in Alabama or in any surrounding states, honestly, I am so excited that we are having our in-person walk to end epilepsy this upcoming weekend. So if I'm jumping ahead, Hannah, let me know.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So Railroad Park this Saturday, the walk registrations will begin at 10 and the walk physically will begin at 11. But we have close to 500 people registered, and I know a lot of people wait until kind of the last week. So we are expecting a huge crowd. We'll have COVID safety protocols in place with the tables spaced out. Hannah, I think you're helping me bring some social distancing stickers. We'll have hand sanitizer everywhere, and we'll even have a pop-up vaccine clinic on site, thanks to Grandview Hospital. So we are just very excited to be outside, safely gather, and really rally around each other, decked out in purple. People bring their posters. We have lots of food donated by local companies, Bud's Best Cookies, Golden Flake, all kinds of stuff. So you'll have Alabama snacks. We'll have Vulcan there. Chick-fil-A Cow is coming to bring out free sandwich coupons. So you just do not want to miss it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So we had another question in the chat asking about, from Alex, examples of wearables. Are you talking about like a watch type thing that catches seizure activity?
Yeah, so I would encourage you to look up epilepsy.com and then in the search box, put seizure detection devices. So there are a number of them, and we work closely with Danny Did Foundation on those. But based on, it's again another question that you need to ask your doctor, because some wearable devices work better than others based on your seizure type. And so I would encourage you, that's always a great question to make sure when you go to your doctor, make sure you're writing down all your questions you have so that you don't forget to ask a question. And if that's one that you have definitely ask them. And even you could go bring up the epilepsy.com link and say, would any of these potentially work to help detect seizure activity for me? And then also there are often grants that can help, because these devices are sometimes expensive and maybe not covered by insurance. And so we can help you find the local grants or just ways to help pay for those devices. So stay in touch with us for that.
And what you mentioned earlier about the picture graphic things, like on the Epilepsy Foundation website, we did that last year with a picture of Charlie like from the side, and it had a thing to go over your picture, and we used it as our profile picture and even made pins with it.
Right.
It's super easy.
Yes.
So do you still need volunteers for the walk?
We do. So we have, if you go to the walk website, which is walktoendepilepsy.org/Birmingham, there's a link on there that will take you to the open registrations that we have for volunteers. And I would say we still need them for several positions. We do have a grid group coming out, but my primary need for volunteers this Saturday would be, I'm still looking for a few photographers and maybe a videographer to come take photos from 10 to 12. And so if anyone has any connections with someone that has a good camera, you won't even need to edit. We can download your SD card files right there on site that afternoon. But really just for an hour or two, we would love to make sure that we have photos that, iPhone photos are great, but sometimes having that real camera there really for the memories. So anyone can contact me even at alabama@efa.org if it's too hard to find the volunteer link, and I can connect you all.
So we're going to post everything in the comments, like about how where to sign up and all that stuff. So remind us one more time how they can register through that link, right? The link we're going to post.
Yes, walktoendepilepsy.org/Birmingham has the link where people can register just for the walk. There's no mandatory fee to attend. Anyone that raises $50 or more will qualify for an event t-shirt. And then anyone with epilepsy qualifies for a free t-shirt at the event. Those will be picked up on site that morning at Railroad Park. Registration starts at 10, the walk and celebration will begin at 11, but it's a lot of networking and snack time before that. So we encourage arrival around 10 a.m. if possible. We'll have lots of sponsors and booths and snacks and that kind of thing, and face tattoos. So photo booth with props. So you're not going to want to miss it. And then anyone that wants to volunteer, you can sign up on that same link. Or if you have any trouble finding the specific volunteer registration link, just email me at alabama@efa.org.
Well, we're looking forward to it, and we'll see you there. And hopefully some of our viewers that are watching should come out and join us too.
Yes, it was going to be a great day. Thank you, Hannah and Alabama Care, for having me today.
Yes, thank you so much. And so hopefully we'll see everybody at Railroad Park next Saturday at 11. All right, well, have a good day. Bye.
Bye.